Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Welcome to another live stream. It is another day in the life of a football fan, and another live stream is here on this channel. We're going to be talking about some of the biggest stories that are buzzing around the world of football today. We're going to be talking maybe a little bit about some of the Carabao Cup action, some of the Champions League action, and we're going to be looking ahead to what this week has in store for us. In particular, I just want to get out there before everybody else does, before everybody else gets and focuses on the big game that's coming up this weekend. I'm, of course, talking about Arsenal and Manchester City battling it out at the Etihad. Just want to kind of get it out there, just my 2 cents on it. I won't give too much away. There's a Premier League predictions video that will be out tomorrow, in which I will give predictions on each and every single Premier League game to come this weekend. So I won't go too much into it. I just wanted to kind of get a few thoughts out there from both an Arsenal and a Manchester City point of view. But no, the main bulk of this video is going to be sort of discussing this PGMOL and Howard Webb situation that has obviously reignited itself today in the aftermath of the Michael Owen and Howard Webb interview. So we're going to be discussing that. I'm going to be discussing a couple of other things as well. We're going to be talking about maybe a bit more about Champions League, maybe a bit more about Carabao Cup. Maybe there'll be a bit more Tottenham and Manchester United talk as well. A bit of Liverpool chat as well in there. Of course there will be. And then, of course, we will probably move on to the other games. So, like always with these types of videos and live streams, hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you are new or want to see more content like this. Both things always and probably greatly appreciated. Thank you for your support. I probably don't say it enough, but yes, I really do appreciate and thank you all so much for your continued support. And hopefully, you know, we're only going to get bigger and grow from this point forward. So thank you all. Really do appreciate it. And like I say, get involved in the chat as well. A lot to discuss today, and I'm sure you guys have got a lot of things on your mind as well that you want to talk about. So really would appreciate you getting involved as well. Would love to hear from you all. Sure, it will all be great to hear what you have to say on any of the discussion points that I want to talk about, or any things that you guys want to talk about. You want to talk about any certain players, want to talk about any transfer gossip, anything along those lines will be greatly appreciated and will help the video and live stream along. So, yes, please do get involved. Would love to hear from you all. We're going to start with this Howard Webb and Michael Owen interview. Now, I will say once again, right off the bat, why the most boring man in world football punditry has got a show with Howard Webb of such importance and relevance, I'll never know. Michael Owen is the meal deal equivalent to a ham sandwich, a packet of ready salted crisps, and a bottle of water. Just completely dull, with no challenge and no intrigue whatsoever. But we watch it anyway, and we obviously have to hear about it because we need to know what is being said. This week, of course, was the revisiting of the Declan Rice sending off that occurred in the game that Arsenal played against Brighton over 2 weeks ago. Now, that is significant because once again, the audio is released over 2 weeks in advance. My initial reaction to that is, what the hell is that all about? I know it has happened in the past where it's taken like over a week to 2 weeks for the VAR audio to be released, and they always do it on this show. I question why that is. Is it because they can edit it in that time? Is it because they can come up with some sort of justification in that time as to why things played out the way that they did? I don't know for certain, but it does seem very weird. And again, I am annoyed and frustrated that the people in power, once again, have decided, no, we will release this over a week or two in advance. It just seems very, very strange to me that has happened. So that's first and foremost. Secondly, what was being said? It's currently going around the footballing world right now. It's currently a big breaking news today about what has been said between Michael Owen and Howard Webb. Very sorry. I'm going to have to... Something really bugging me across the room that I'm going to have to sort out. There we go. There we go. Right. Much better. Much better. That was awkward. No. Very awkward. Very awkward. Right. Yes. So, initially, right off the bat, that annoys me. Secondly, very little to no challenge from Michael Owen, as we've now come to expect from this kind of interview. Howard Webb just goes on and on and on about whatever the hell is going on about. And it's just all words. There's no substance. There's nothing to those words. It's just words. And Michael Owen sat there like a lost little puppy that has just found its owner and the owner can't do nothing wrong. And he just nods. He just nods. And even when he says the words, I'm going to try and pick this apart, he fails miserably in picking it apart. He picks it apart so poorly. So poorly. It's a joke. It's a joke as to why this show continues. It's a joke as to why there's no challenge. It's a joke as to why Owen is the host of this show in the first place. It just is a complete shambles, in my honest opinion, on this. So, yeah, that's not great either. Because as Howard Webb is droning on, he mentions that he believes the referee got it right to send Declan Rice off. And I said at the time, I agree with the decision. By the letter of the law, Declan Rice had to be shown a second yellow card. It's harsh, extremely harsh, but it is by the letter of the law. But then they played the VAR audio. Now, I'm confused already because I know obviously the VAR is always in the background and they're always checking in with different things. And obviously the VAR may catch something that the referee hasn't, that kind of thing. But the VAR obviously can't get involved in a second yellow card offence. So I'm very surprised that they decided to play this audio in the first place, considering VAR has very little to no interference in this situation. VAR can't overturn the on-field referee's decision. VAR can't get involved in swaying the referee one way or another as to which way to go in terms of, does he book Rice again? Does he book someone else? Now, they may have been looking at the Veltman situation and judging whether or not Veltman kicked Rice through foul play and conduct. But at the same time, they obviously do mention the fact that Rice kicks the ball away. So did they influence his decision in that aspect? I don't know. It seems like the referee agreed very quickly that what he needed to do. He said he'd given him no choice. He even says to Declan Rice himself, "You've given me no choice here." And I remember saying at the time, you do have a choice. And the reason you have a choice is because Howard Webb has given you that choice. And I made reference when the video first came out, when obviously this whole thing went down, I made reference to the fact that last season, Howard Webb literally said, we try and keep it 11v11. We try and keep everybody on. We don't try and micromanage the game. We don't try and over officiate. We don't try and send people off for the sake of sending people off. We try and keep it 11v11 and apply common sense. So you do have a choice to make in that regard. I think what the referee did was right. I think sending Declan Rice off was the right decision. But the only thing that really matters in this situation is the consistency aspect. It's the consistency of it. If João Pedro gets booked for what he did in what was it? I think it was later on the first half. Was it the first half or the second half? I can't remember now. If João Pedro gets booked when he smashes the ball into Rosed, I don't think no Arsenal fan is going to be complaining. They'll probably say it's extremely harsh, but by the letter of the law, yes, he has to go. And that was the main argument of this whole thing. It's about consistency. It's about the referees implementing these laws and restrictions and regulations, but not implementing them consistently. We have seen time and time again referees pick and choose their moments as to whether or not to book someone for these kinds of things. We've seen all manner of players really walk that thin line and tightrope when it comes to these kinds of things. A number of players probably should have been sent off for a second bookable offence because of these types of things. Look at this past weekend. Dominic Szoboszlai probably should have been in the closing stages of the Liverpool-Nottingham Forest game. These things are happening left, right and centre, but these referees are picking and choosing when to implement these new rules. And it's a joke. It's a serious, serious joke. Now, we'll credit Michael Owen a little bit here because he actually does bring in the João Pedro example. He actually does bring in the João Pedro example. And the brilliant thing is that Howard Webb admitted the referee got it wrong. He said it's been communicated to the referee that he probably got it wrong not to book João Pedro in this situation. And not only that, but then goes on to completely mess it up in the space of a minute by saying, but in saying that he got it wrong, with the way that there was no Arsenal player around him and therefore no Arsenal player ready to resume play, he probably just about gets away with it. If that's the case, why was Bruno Fernandes booked on Saturday? Bruno Fernandes had the exact same thing happen to him on Saturday. No Southampton player around him. And he got booked. Once again, it's a consistency failure on the part of referees and VAR and the PGMOL and whoever else in between. It is a consistency issue that is happening and occurring time and 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 time again. There will be other cases over the course of the past few months of this happening. Consistency, consistency, consistency. If there's one thing referees, VAR and the PGMOL are consistent at, it is being inconsistent. And that is why Arsenal are annoyed and angry at the fact that Declan Rice saw a red card, got suspended for the Tottenham game, and are just annoyed by the fact that this hasn't necessarily happened to other people. And it's because of the consistency or inconsistencies of Premier League officials and refereeing. We brag about having the best league in the world, but how can that be when our referees and our level of officiating are so poor that they are incredibly inconsistent? And last season, I like a lot of other content creators and people were on this tirade of trying to find consistency and fighting inconsistency at every turn. I did videos on Liverpool. I did videos on Arsenal. I did videos on Wolves even Wolves. Don't let it just get swept under the carpet just because it's not one of the members of the top six or traditional top six or whatever you want to call them. There were teams at the bottom of the table to mid-table that were fighting these inconsistencies as well. I think there was a Brighton moment. There was a Bournemouth moment. There were moments for every team last season that we had to try and come together to fight against. And just because it happens to Arsenal and there are going to be rival fans that are happy about it, doesn't mean we should just turn a blind eye to it. It really doesn't mean a blind eye to it. And again, there was another moment as well where they talked about the Bournemouth goal against Newcastle. And I made a video on that. And I remember saying at the time, this is going to get swept under the carpet simply for the reason that it's not one of the top six clubs. And yet I was right because it did get swept under the carpet. Not many people were talking about it. But yet they seemingly said they got it wrong. So Bournemouth were robbed of 2 points. We're going to go through this again. And we can already see it escalating. Howard Webb said in his interview with Owen that these kinds of dissent things are being implemented much harsher. They are being implemented much more, and they have seen these incidents double over time, and the amount of yellow cards that have been dished out for these kinds of things has doubled over the course of the past year to a season. This past weekend, Chelsea versus Bournemouth saw 14 cards being dished out left, right, and centre. The Arsenal-Tottenham game, I believe, had about 8 or 9, and they were for stupidly soft fouls. There were some very soft fouls in there. I think Bentancur and I want to say it was like Van der Ven or something picked up yellow cards for the most softest of conditions and situations. It was unbelievable how soft they picked up their bookings for. But yet that puts that team on the back foot because that team then doesn't have a safety net then. You don't really have a safety net, but if you make a clumsy challenge or a cynical foul or whatever the case may be, don't really have a safety net for that because of these stupid things that are being given. And to make it worse as well, to just add another layer of crap to this already crap cake that is being concocted by these people in power, by the PGMOL and Howard Webb. Gary Neville on Sky, watching that Tottenham Arsenal game, basically driving this agenda that second yellow cards, the threshold needs to be risen for yellow cards. What absolute crap are you talking about, Gary? How can you sit there and go, that's a yellow card all day long? That is definitely a yellow card all day long. And then, but then if he's on a yellow card already, go, oh, you know what, I'm not actually sure it's a yellow card because, you know what, he might be sent off here and we don't want to kind of ruin the integrity of the game. You ruin the integrity of the game when you don't carry out your job, when you don't lay down these rules, regulations, and laws and things and follow through on them. That's when you ruin the integrity of the game, not when you decide to pick and choose your moments to implement them. Don't sit there and be like, yeah, it's a yellow card all day long, that, but because he's already on a yellow card, I can understand why the referee wouldn't have given it. We saw too much of that last season. Too much of that last season. And I was hoping for improvement. I was hoping that we could, that the PGMOL and the referees and VAR could redeem themselves. But it hasn't happened yet. We've not necessarily seen it. And we're probably going to get more shows with Michael Owen and Howard Webb talking absolute nonsense absolute nonsensical BS about this and that, and about referees doing this and referees doing that, referees being inconsistent, deciding to give a penalty here and a penalty there and not a penalty there and not a penalty there for similar things, and not a yellow card here and not a red card there. And we're going to continue to go in this epic circle because it creates drama. Because it creates this, what I'm doing right now, and I'm feeding into it, and I get it, but it does need to be called out. It really, really does. And not just by me, but by every other person out there that is a wannabe content creator, that is a content creator, whether your platform is small, whether your platform is big, whether you're somewhere in the middle, it needs to be called out, this. Because it's absolutely ridiculous that the level of consistency is at an all-time inconsistent level. And these justifications as to why it is so like this just doesn't work. It just doesn't work for me. It doesn't sit well with me. And yet there's no challenge there. I can do this, but there's no way Howard Webb is going to respond. There's no way anyone from the media is going to respond. It's just me talking to you guys and being like, okay, this is how I see it. Do you guys see it a similar way? Do you guys see it a different way? It just is a bit of a car crash, in all honesty. And I don't know, man. I just find it completely stupid that we have to go through this every now and again. Oh, even more so, more regularly, it seems, recently than this. Like I say, I'm surprised that they even played the audio clip at all. I'm even more surprised it took them 2.5 weeks to come up with the weakest of all justifications as to why the referee did what he did. Why these factors aren't consistent enough, because I can guarantee you it will keep happening. This weekend, for example, I guarantee it will keep happening. If in the Liverpool-Bournemouth game a Liverpool player gets sent off for something, and in the Manchester United Palace game later on that day, the player that does the exact same thing, that's already on a yellow card, gets away with it and remains on the pitch, there'll be outrage then, whether it happened that way around or the other way around, or it happens in other games as well. I've just picked them two out as a random example. There are going to be issues. There are going to be more issues, more problems. And the PGMOL are just digging deeper and deeper holes, but they're burying their heads in the sand and pretending like everything's okay. It really isn't. And that's just the sad reality of it. That is just the sad reality of the current situation that is in the Premier League right now. And I say, the more they talk, the more we know they are full of it. Because they just keep waffling. A bit like what I'm doing right now. They just keep waffling about these things. They talk about the Declan Rice thing and how it's somewhat different to João Pedro's thing. They talk about the handball that Bournemouth had against them, which actually wasn't a handball. It's just a, oops, we got it wrong there. Oh, well. Like, the yellow card that could have gone to João Pedro could have affected the game. You don't know. You don't know the ripple effect. The yellow card to João Pedro could have affected the game, where the Arsenal players wind him up that much that maybe he gets a second yellow later on in the game. Maybe that happens. It affects the game, and obviously everything has a knock-on effect. And it really did there. And Arsenal fans will feel hard done by still. They will still feel not aggrieved by the situation. They will still feel like, they've not really had the answers that they deserve, and they're not really the apology that they probably deserve for the inconsistencies. And, it's not just Arsenal fans in this situation that deserve apologies, but probably every team up and down the country that has faced these kinds of situations as well. But yeah, these are the governing bodies, and these are the kind of institutions we have to deal with. So it is what it is in terms of this score. But yeah, we'll obviously keep calling this out as best we can. We'll obviously keep trying to be as consistent in this, more so than what obviously the PGMOL are, as much as possible. We will keep trying to do what we think is right for football and for the betterment and for the improvement of the sport that we know and love, by calling out the governing bodies at the top level of this sport. I say it's probably only going to get worse, and the longer no one in the mainstream media really challenges it, the longer that, you know, the likes of Michael Owen continue to just sit there and nod along and go, yes, Howard, no, Howard, 3 bags full, Howard. The longer that the inconsistencies are going to resume, the longer that nothing is going to change. Because I guarantee you, something's going to happen this weekend. And we'll be bringing out the clips again of Howard Webb sitting there going, we try and keep it 11v11. We don't try and over-officiate the game. We don't try and influence the game in a massive and major way. But yet the PGMOL are constantly in the referee's ear. And we know that now. Because whilst they're not meant to get involved in moments that are second bookable offences and things like that, they're clearly there in the background. They are clearly there in the background. So we shall see. We shall see. But it does seem very stupid and very ridiculous. That of what he said. And like I say, it's an absolute shambles. It's not well run at all. They keep saying that they communicate these kinds of things to the players on a regular basis. I'm sorry, but if you can't even remain consistent on any of these things that you're saying, how do you expect the players to know what the hell you're on about? It's just ridiculous, in all honesty. It's a complete car crash, in my personal opinion. Guys, do me a favor, hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you're new and want to see more content like this. Both things will always be forever greatly appreciated. Thank you for your continued support. Get in the chat as well. Let me know what you guys are thinking and feeling about the whole Howard Webb VAR thing, the whole Declan Rice situation. Would love to hear from you all on what you have to say on that. But we're going to be moving on to our next talking point. Champions League. Liverpool last night, Aston Villa as well, kicking off their campaigns in perfect dream starts for both of those teams. Villa winning 3-0 against Young Boys. Liverpool winning 3-1 after initially going a goal down to AC Milan. Liverpool absolutely wiped the floor with AC Milan after the opening 15 minutes or so. Really dominating display from the Reds. Took them 15 minutes to get going, but once they did, they never looked back. And in AC Milan's backyard, Liverpool absolutely tore them apart. Absolutely tore them apart. Fantastic display by the Reds. Fantastic performance overall by the vast majority of those Liverpool players. Both centre-backs getting on the score sheet in Ibrahima Konate and Virgil van Dijk, and Dominic Szoboszlai put the bow on top of that performance. Really kind of rounded it off in a perfect way. A fantastic start by Liverpool in this newly revamped Champions League competition. And Liverpool can now look ahead to a Saturday clash with Bournemouth. Aston Villa, 3-0 winners against Young Boys in Switzerland. Perfect start to the European campaign for Aston Villa. Be very interesting to see how far they can get in these kinds of competitions. We all know about Unai Emery's European pedigree. We all know how incredible he is as a manager overall. It's going to be interesting to see the rotation side of this, how he's going to rotate, how he's going to keep things fresh, and how he's going to continue to balance and juggle multiple competitions going forward. So a lot there to be happy about for both sides, in all honesty. Villa survived a couple of hairy moments, but for the most part looked pretty comfortable, especially as the game wore on, and they really took advantage of some really poor defending by the Swiss side to really put them to the sword. As for Liverpool, like I say, opening 15 minutes aside, they were brilliant. They were absolutely brilliant. The early 15 minutes saw Christian Pulisic, of course, open the scoring. But this Milan side, there's absolutely no way whatsoever that this Milan side are anywhere near where they used to be. And that's an understatement to say the least, because Milan have had some pretty incredible, phenomenal teams down the years. This team now looks like an absolute shambles of itself. And I know there's pressure on the manager. I don't really follow Serie A religiously, admittedly, but I know there's pressure on the manager. They mentioned it half a dozen times last night on commentary. There's pressure on him. There's pressure on the team. I know he's only a new manager as well, but it just seems to be still that case of being a sleeping giant for AC Milan to get over. And they got absolutely bullied last night by Liverpool in their own backyard. Because after the initial 15 minutes where Liverpool survived going a goal down, they survived maybe another couple of moments where AC Milan were getting in between the lines and they were really overpowering in the midfield. Liverpool just tightened things up and they clicked into gear and they were like, oh, hang on a minute, this is a Champions League game. We'd better start performing right now. And they did that. They got there. They got back on level terms and they never looked back since. So fantastic display all around from both Aston Villa and Liverpool last night. There were also wins for Real Madrid with both Kylian Mbappe and Endrick getting on the score sheet. Antonio Rudiger sandwiched in the middle, getting on the score sheet as well. Bayern Munich won 9-2. I believe that's the biggest goal scoring output of any Champions League side in history. I believe, I could be wrong, but I think I remember seeing someone mention that yesterday. Fantastic display by Bayern Munich. Fantastic by Vincent Kompany, of course. Harry Kane gets a hat-trick. Okay. 4 goals on the night. 3 goals for a hat-trick, of course. 3 goals were also penalties. But still, you've got to score them. Brilliant night all night for Champions League elite. Can't complain, really. Can't complain on any kind of level. And away from the Champions League as well, there was also some Carabao Cup action last night. Manchester United stuck 7 past Barnsley. Yes, it's Barnsley. But at the end of the day, you can only beat what is in front of you. And let's face it, not a lot of teams are putting 7 past these kinds of oppositions. So you're going to have to be happy about scoring 7 goals. Not really a lot to say on that one, in all honesty. I mean, even Anthony got a goal. So, yeah, I wouldn't read too much into it. I wouldn't go too overboard with it if you are a Manchester United fan. But at the end of the day, just be happy with the performance, be happy with the result, and obviously just enjoy it for what it is. It may only be Barnsley, and people will go, oh, it's only Barnsley. Why are you getting so happy over Barnsley? So there's no salt from me whatsoever. There's got to be no sort of dead banter from me on this situation. You beat Barnsley by 7-0. It was an absolute riot in the end. And, fair play to Manchester United for doing that. Alejandro Garnacho put in a very good performance. Marcus Rashford was back amongst the goals. That's what I want to ask, though. Is Marcus Rashford's confidence improving? Now, of course, you can't really say he's back after just 2 games of getting on the score sheet. And as much as I say you can't really pick apart the level of opposition, you can't also be like, well, he's back because of the goals he scored. Because they have been against a team that is looking to probably be relegated this season from the Premier League and a team that is in a lower division. So, can't really say that. But is this the kind of building blocks that does get a player's confidence back up? Scoring a couple of goals last night, scoring a goal at the weekend. Is this Rashford's way of building himself back up? Could he also be maybe a shrewd pick for any fantasy football managers out there? I don't know. It could be very intriguing to obviously watch the continuation of Marcus Rashford's season in particular from this point forward. Elsewhere in the Carabao Cup last night, Preston and Fulham, it may have finished 1-1 on the night, but on penalties, it ended 16-15 in quite chaotic circumstances. I believe someone said it was the longest penalty shootout in Carabao Cup, or maybe even Cup football history. So, fantastic action there. Certainly got your money's worth in terms of penalty shootout action if you went down to Deepdale last night. Sorry, I'm just checking all the other, because they've all just escaped me from the top of my head, so I'm just checking the Carabao Cup scores from last night. So Man United 7, Barnsley 0. Fulham and Preston played out that incredible penalty shootout. Stoke won 2-1 on penalties against Fleetwood Town. Brentford came from a goal down to beat Leyton Orient by 3-1. I think Fabio Carvalho scored the pick of the goals in that one. Crystal Palace beat QPR by 2-1. Everton got knocked out by Southampton. The poor start to the season continues for Sean Dyche and Everton, who are out of the Carabao Cup after a penalty shootout defeat at the hands of Everton. Quite a few of these went to penalty shootouts. Sheffield Wednesday 1, Blackpool 0 was the other one. And then tonight, you have the likes of Brighton taking on Wolves in an all-Premier League clash there. You've got Coventry taking on Tottenham. That's going to be very interesting, especially if Tottenham lose that one. That is going to be incredible to watch. And big pressure on Tottenham in that game, especially after what Postecoglou said earlier on this week about how he always wins in his second season in charge of wherever he goes. So this could be Tottenham's biggest and best chance at silverware this season. If they go out to Coventry tonight, though, that's going to be huge. And then tomorrow night, more next week. Yes, there's more next week in the forms of Man City playing Liverpool, Newcastle, Chelsea. I don't know why they've done that kind of. I know obviously the Champions League kind of takes its hold, but it's kind of weird they've done it like that. But either way, Carabao Cup continues with action tonight and next week, as there are some big games to be played and some big storylines to be created in that competition. So we talked VAR and Howard Webb. We have talked Champions League and Carabao Cup. Of course, there's more Champions League action tonight from the likes of Manchester City taking on Inter. But I want to talk. I'm going to wrap it up, actually. I'm going to wrap this up by talking about the game coming up this weekend. I'm talking the game. There are a lot of interesting and intriguing Premier League encounters this week, but none more so than what is happening or going to happen at the Etihad on Sunday. Sunday we'll see Manchester City host Arsenal at the Etihad Stadium in what is going to be a huge Premier League encounter between two of the top contenders for this season's Premier League title. Arsenal coming off the back of a 1-0 win over their arch rivals Tottenham last week in difficult circumstances, given the personnel that they were missing on that day. No Declan Rice, no Tomiyasu, no really interchange in the back line because of how their injuries have dwindled their squad a little bit, especially defensively. And of course, their main one being no Martin Odegaard. No Martin Odegaard. They go into this week with Declan Rice back, but still no Odegaard. I'm not going to give too much away in terms of my prediction. That is going to come tomorrow. But in terms of this game, this is, in my opinion, billed as the irresistible force of Manchester City against the immovable object of Arsenal's defence. This is a case of Erling Haaland starting the season on absolute fire. Fire! This campaign. The guy is 1 goal away from hitting double figures already. The guy is 1 goal away from hitting 10 goals in his opening 4 games. Well, it'll be 5 games by the time the Arsenal game comes around. So if he was to score in that one, he'd be scoring 2 goals a game so far this campaign, which is just phenomenal. Just absolutely phenomenal to think of. But Arsenal have stopped him in the past. Last season, Arsenal picked up a couple of decent points against City. I think they actually won. I think they win the away. They won at home, didn't they? I think they won at home and drew away. Still wasn't enough for them to win the league. That's how incredible City are. But in saying that, this weekend's going to be huge. Huge. It's a real statement maker to whichever team wins. City, if they win, big mental advantage going on for the season. They'll already start to develop a points advantage, an even bigger points advantage over Arsenal than what they've currently got right now of a couple. But it will also maintain their perfect start. And as we know, City don't normally do this. It normally takes about a couple of months before City start to really find their groove and find their rhythm. And they start to really put some level of consistency together. City have come out the traps flying so far. And Erling Haaland in particular has been in scorching red-hot form. Seriously, if you're managing to survive without Erling Haaland in fantasy football, I don't know how the hell you're doing it. But yes, Haaland is that guy right now. But in saying that, he's coming up against a defence that normally seems to trouble him. And that's why I bill it as the irresistible force of Erling Haaland meets the immovable object of Arsenal's defence. Arsenal last week allowed Tottenham to have the ball. They were in full control of that game and they dictated everything. They allowed Arsenal to have the ball because they knew they weren't going to do anything with it. They knew they were not going to do anything with that ball to penetrate the Arsenal back line. Now, granted, a couple of opportunities were made by by Tottenham, but they didn't make the most of them. And as the game wore on, Arsenal sensed that this Tottenham side were running out of steam. They sensed that this Tottenham side were running out of ideas. And ultimately, Arsenal saw the game out. And I think that's going to be the blueprint to what this game is going to be. At the Etihad, it's going to be tough for Arsenal, and Arsenal know that. They're going to allow City to have the lion's share of possession, and they're going to counter. Now, there'll be no Odegaard, so their creativity takes a hit. But, in saying that, City have not exactly got the best or most watertight defence in the league. They do allow opposition to have chances from time to time. We saw how early Brentford hit them last week. We saw that Vissa scored in the opening 30 seconds or something of that game. We know that probably Emblemo should have put Brentford 2-0 ahead inside the opening 5 minutes. We know it's tough, but it's not impenetrable. And the likes of Bukayo Saka, Martinelli, Leandro Trossard, Kai Havertz on the counter-attack are going to be huge. And it's going to be about whether or not Arsenal can take their chances on that counter-attack, make the right decisions in transition, and not only that as well, but just be decisive. The one thing they weren't against Tottenham was decisive on the counter-attack. They got their goal from a set piece, but it could have been more. They really could have scored more if their final ball had been good enough in their execution and their decision-making had been better in the final third. But their failure to do that properly resulted in a lot of counter-attacks breaking down. Admittedly as well, Mickey van der Ven was brilliant for Tottenham as he usually is. He stopped a lot of them counter-attacks with his pace on the cover. But it could have been more for Arsenal. It really, really could have been more for the Gunners in that situation. Here, we're going to see it again. Lion's share of possession for City, and it's going to be a question of can they break down this City side? This Arsenal side, this Arsenal back line, or will Arsenal punish them on the counter-attack? I'm very much looking forward to this game. I think it's going to be a very interesting and very close game. I'm not going to reveal my score prediction until tomorrow's video drops. But I just wanted to get it out there of the immovable object. The irresistible force taking on the immovable object. Very much intrigued by what is going to be going down this weekend. Lots of Premier League actions, obviously, to sink our teeth into to talk about. But the main bulk of this story in this video, of course, guys, was to be about the PGMOL and Howard Webb and the kind of nonsense that they are spouting in the aftermath of the audio dropping from the VAR for the Declan Rice situation that occurred a couple of weeks ago in Arsenal's game against Brighton. So that's the main bulk of it. We talked Champions League, we talked Carabao Cup, just something to kind of get out there today. Just have a bit of a rant about, bit of a rave and a rant about. And as I always say on these types of videos, these are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of anything that I talked about in this live stream? What do you make of anything that I talked about in regards to the PGMOL, Howard Webb, Champions League, Carabao Cup, or even what is to come this week in terms of Premier League action, particularly from the Etihad, where Arsenal will be taking on Manchester City. Let me know what you guys are thinking and feeling. Your thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, will make for an interesting reading down below. Otherwise, hit the like button on the way up if you enjoyed the video, people. Subscribe if you're new. Both things are always and very greatly appreciated. Get involved, like I say, in that comment section. Would love to hear from you what you have to say. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video, and I hope to speak to you all again soon in a video or live stream or whatever it may be. Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. Speak to you all again very, very soon.